Let's go. We are back with another session. And I'm here as always with my man, Vishal from India, tuning in halfway across the world. What's going on, Vishal? How you doing, man?
Great, man. Always so excited to talk to you, and never a bad time to hop on a session and do it for the boys.
Yeah, let's do it, man. What's going on? What's a typical week for you look like in India, man? As I said that, I'm wondering what the day-to-day looks like for you.
But yeah, it's pretty. It's not the average day. It's not the average day for somebody in America or somebody across the world. But
Really?
for me
How's it
here, I
different?
wake up. So what?
How is it? I would like to know how it's different because you've spent
Yeah,
time obviously in the States and in Canada, so you kind of see the lifestyle there that we are accustomed to here. But how is it
yeah.
different, or what are some things that you have to deal with, challenges and stuff like that in India?
More than a challenge, I've kind of gotten used to it. I'll tell you about it in a second, but I've kind of gotten used to it. And I was just talking to a friend about it. I think I've gotten too comfortable with the kind of lifestyle that is required for us to live here in India. But I'll tell you about it in a second. It's We just wake up, take care of our health for an hour or so. I mean, maybe go to a gym for an hour or two, come back, go to work. We work 6 days a week, unlike most other people in India. Some people work 7 days a week also. And
Wow.
work timing here is insane because like we start at 10 in the morning and we shut down at 9 in the night, and we barely get to come home for like lunch or if that at all. But yeah, other than that, we're always working, and more than working, it's just like servicing to clients, taking care of their needs, fulfilling orders, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but the actual work that I do is when I'm at home, other than the work hours, right? So after 9 is when I actually sit down and start the development work and all of that kind of stuff. And that's why I usually end the day pretty late. I think I'd say I'm up till like 1 o'clock ish at night. And then I go to bed, and then I wake up the next morning and it's the same story again. So that's what a typical day in my life looks like at the moment. And I do that 6 days a week. And on Sundays, we don't go to the office. The store stays shut. But I'm still working at home on the business development side of it and growing and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what a week looks like for us here in India, though.
Wow, man. Busy lifestyle. Is that typical for, all Indian people? Is it like you guys are most people have like a really good work ethic, or is it specific because you're in charge of your family business, or what's it what would you say?
I feel like not really. It's not typical for just everybody to grow up like this. And I wouldn't say I'm special. I'm not saying that. It's just that for a lot of people, however, like me, we get our family businesses handed down to us to like take it to the next level and kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the way our finances are set up are really different from like the way finances are set up outside of India. For us, what it is basically that. So for me, I'm a 25-year-old. I work on the business, or I work at the business, or whatever. I work to grow it and stuff, and all of the money that comes into the business goes into a singular pot, and that's where the money gets used out of for anything that anybody needs in the family, right? And that's how it works. It's not that we're necessarily rewarded for the stuff that we do right that second, or right that day, or right that month, or even that year.
Yeah.
And that I feel like is what helps people like me grow into very patient human beings. Because I feel like the one thing this teaches me is delayed gratification. Because like I'm working like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not compensated as I would if I did, or if I put in that much work into like a job or something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not compensated like that as such in monetary terms right away. But of course, the business then gets handed down to me at some point and all that. There's plus and minus to that, but like I feel like this is what the situation is currently. Again, the work that I'm putting in is not regular to see, is not common to see for everybody. But that's again to help me build something on the side with the family business as well, so that I get a little sense of gratification, a little sense of reward on the side as well, and a little sense of growth as well on the side as well. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's basically what my life looks like right now.
Wow, man, that's
but it's
intense.
tough.
Especially working in your family, it must be challenging in a way. I mean, I know, they say don't mix business with family, and because things can go crazy. Like, do you have a lot of other people involved with your family inside the family business, and how does that affect like the relationships? Like for you guys, is it hard to separate work and family, or is it something that as a culture you're just used to this?
No, I feel like I'm just finding a new side. Like I'm discovering a new side of myself as I grow older and deeper into this family business kind of setup. And no, to answer your question, it's just me, my uncle, and my grandpa involved in the business. They're still involved in the business. My grandpa, he's about 86 now, and he's still actively involved in the business. And
Oh wow.
so it's like there's a lot of differences in opinions, I would say, between me and my grandpa and my uncle, because obviously the
Yeah.
age gap and the generation gap and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I feel like the boat is being sailed, man. I mean, there. Like I said, there's positives and negatives to everything, and the positive that I see is I get to um, I get the experience that they've gotten over 70 years of business. But again, one of the biggest drawbacks is we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, a lot of business development decisions and stuff like that. But I feel like my uncle comes in and plays a huge role in kind of being the bridge between me and my grandpa. He understands the best of both worlds, and then he kind of finds the middle ground always, and that's what's keeping me here. Is that my uncle's so supportive, especially after my dad passed away and he's not around to take a stand for me in a lot of places. In a way, my uncle steps in and plays a very important role in my life, and as well as in the business, I guess, in the business
Wow, that's
decision.
cool. Is that
Yeah.
something? Obviously, your family business, your grandfather's been running the company for a long time, and he's older now. You obviously grew up in it, and basically your family lives off the business. So you must have had a front row seat to like the development of it. Did you always know that you were going to be like an integral part of the working functions of the family business,
No,
or like
bro.
what role did you carve out for yourself in the company?
No, it was never. Honestly, I never saw myself joining the family business because of one thing. We're mostly into retail, and I just never saw myself sitting down behind a counter, behind a counter or taking care of like people selling stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
like every business is just people selling stuff and you managing those people, and such as our business as well. But I just felt like I felt like I was built for something different, right? That's what I felt like. I don't know if it's the entitlement or if it's me being too cocky, but I felt like I was meant for more, and that's why I just keep like pushing myself even today. Yeah, I mean circumstances, you never know where they take you, and that's where they've brought me. And since I've joined, I've kind of steered away from the whole retail side of it because I got into ecom. I took a section of our business online, and that's what I take care of entirely. And so, like most of my stuff is basically done from my computer. So, like I said, I'm usually at work most of
Mhm.
the day, but I'm doing my own stuff. I'm taking care of my own website and like sales through ecom and all that kind of stuff anyway. But I'm just required to be at the business for some reason. That's again the generational gap, right? My grandpa, he just can't believe that I can make money sitting at home or sitting on a computer, right? And so he's like, "You're not being successful if you're not at the business." I'm like, that's not true. But like again, so that's a little compromise. I have to be there. Uh, but again, steered away from retail, got into ecom, and now I'm developing further into it. So that's
And too,
basically
yeah, I mean, like that's great. And look at like your work ethic. You've got like what time is it there? It's past midnight, right, or almost midnight.
it's almost midnight. Yeah,
And here we are. We're grinding. We're doing a hockey podcast or quasi hockey podcast, right? So like being able to branch off and do other things is, I guess, a luxury of the modern world as well, right? Where you can still work in the old school business, but you can also do side projects and fun things like for me, from my perspective, man, like being able to record with you over in India and have this channel, this opportunity to do a session with you is, I'm very grateful for it, and we're blessed that we have this opportunity. Just a
yeah,
few years
it's
ago,
like
this wasn't even a thing.
yes, likewise. It, I mean, I'm sure like hearing the story kind of throws a lot of people away because how the hell are you working like 16 hours a day and What are you doing at like a 70-year-old retail business, taking it online and all that kind of stuff? But like, it kind of makes me curious to hear your perspective to it. Now that I'm working 16 hours a day, and I'm at a 70-year-old retail business where I could literally be sitting at home working on my computer, making money and all that kind of stuff. But I'm still like kind of living in between the two worlds. The one is very conventional, like very old style, old school stuff, plus the modern world as well, right? And plus you come like you're basically born and brought up in America, which is a whole different side of the world, and that just makes me curious to understand what your first reaction is or what your first perspective is to this.
Well, first of all, I think it's a testament to your, acumen that you're able to slide into the family business and bring that youthful vigor and excitement and ideas from the modern world, right? To the old school business. I think that's that you have a unique opportunity to do something special with that. Myself personally, I didn't come from like a legacy. There are people, of course, who've had family businesses in the United States. I got friends, right, whose
Yeah,
grandfather started a company, passed on to the father, and then the son will get into the family business. Like that's not all too uncommon in the States as well. But for me personally, I never had that, like my father had a job, he was a salesman, and he basically encouraged me from when I was a kid to he's like, whatever you do, just like start your own thing and don't ever work for anybody else. Like work for yourself. And I was always as a kid, like, yeah, okay, that sounds good, but I don't really understand like how, and I'd look up at him and he, all I could see was, my father was working hard to provide for his family, by going out there and working for somebody else and somebody else's company, and getting a salary and bringing money home. And it was great. It afforded us the opportunity to live a nice life. I was able to play hockey and travel and, go to private school and do all the things that really were, I'm very fortunate that I had those opportunities. But again, it was always my father was always like sort of like frustrated by having to go and work for somebody else's firm. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And he would
yeah,
always encourage me ever since I was a little kid. He like beat it into me like whatever you do, like you got one life, like don't work for anybody else, like work for yourself. So that was like my mission from when I was a kid, and I think that's what pushed me to want to be a hockey player my whole life, because I was like, oh, okay, I'm good at hockey, or good enough where I'm like hockey could take me someplace, and then we'll figure things out from there and we'll pivot
yeah,
when we get there, right? And so that was like my strategy, as a kid. And I never like thought much about like business, to be honest with you. Like when I was young, I never really thought of it. My main focus was like, don't end up in a frustrating situation like my father was in, where he really wasn't passionate. I mean, like, he was good at what he did. He was a salesman and he was really good at it. And he was very,
yeah,
good talker and things. And so he flourished. But, privately, when we were in the car on the way to hockey trips, he would just always be like, it sucks, man. You got a boss, the boss would be, coming at him with different projects and different things he might not have wanted to do. And so he's taking orders, and he was very adamant about me, like, in my life, like, if you want to be happy, and again, like you mentioned it too, like being from the US, like we're very fortunate here where we have these opportunities to, start companies. Like that's really what the United States is all about. So for me, it was always like, as I got older, I started to realize, like, if I'm going to do my own thing, I'm going to have to start my own business, and that will be the thing I'll fall back on and work on and have it be mine. So it's a bit different than from where you come from, where I didn't have that legacy. But it's interesting to hear from your perspective, and you obviously bringing the stuff that obviously all the new ways of making money, where you said where you can make money from your laptop anywhere in the world. And now especially with, like, as the technology is getting better every day, and all these AI platforms are coming online, it must be fun for you to be able to update some of the old school business workings of your family business into the new modern world. And I saw you've done some product drops, and it seems like you've got some really cool, interesting things going on over in India right now.
yeah. But I do want to go back a little step though, like go back, take a little step back, and analyze what I was doing because I did work two jobs over like the first 5 years of starting into like the business world, or starting when I was starting to move away from hockey. Remember when even when my father passed away, I was still working a job, right? And I feel like they also played a huge role in who I am today, how I understand the businesses today, and a lot of the decisions that I make today, also within the business side of things as well. Yeah, but I guess working two jobs was just like the foundation of who I am today. I guess just like hockey was, right? because hockey took me places. It taught me a lot of things, and as a whole, I am the person I am today because of hockey, because of how the jobs turned out, because of
Yeah.
various other experiences that I went through, right? And so, all in all, I feel like everything that happens to me is an opportunity, and this is just another one of them, and I'm just trying to make the most of it, man. Just like everybody else is.
Yeah, no, and I've been following your journey, man. We've known each other now for so long, and again, like when we met, and you weren't you were integrally involved in your family business as much when we were first met, and you were playing hockey, and now you've been kind of thrust into that role and that managerial role, and to see you grasp it and take hold, and then also to have time to do this creative project together and do the Sessions channel. It's fun, man. It's fun to watch, and I'm grateful to be a part of the ride in some way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is one way that I get to stay connected to hockey, which is again what the dream was ever since. And I remember coming to you also a couple years ago. I was like, "Hey Rob, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to stay connected to hockey." I know that the passing of my father is um, going to end up with me at the business, or going to result in me going to the family business.
Yeah.
But I don't want to quit hockey altogether, and I want to stay connected to hockey in one way or another. And look how beautifully it turned out, right? So everything that happens is just an opportunity, I guess. So I have to
Yeah,
make the
absolutely,
most of
man.
it.
100%, dude. And speaking of hockey, have you been paying attention to the Stanley Cup playoffs? They just started up this week here, and got some exciting games already going on, dude.
I know everybody's going bonkers on it, and I get to follow up on a little bit of action, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty wild to see this over the years. I mean, I've seen hockey evolve so much over the years. I mean, over just like the 5-10 years that I've watched it for, and it still blows my mind to this day how crazy it is, how cool it gets, right?
Yeah, I was watching last night. Alexander Ovechkin scored 2 goals. That he got the game winner. I think it was his first playoff OT game-winning goal. So another first for Alexander Ovechkin. Man, watching
Wow.
Ovechkin like was so inspiring last night. Like the dude's 39 years old. He's literally dominating like he's 29 years old. He's running guys over. He scored 2 goals. Like the Capitals almost look unstoppable with Ovi. Basically playing like he's in his prime again. And it was fun to watch last night where he got the winner in OT, and yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. Tonight we got big games tonight too. We got your boy Claude Giroux. You got your jersey back there playing for
Absolutely.
Ottawa Senators tonight in the Battle of Ontario. We got two Buttendz guys. We got Max Domi battling it out with Tim Stutzla in that series. So I'm excited to watch those games tonight. And yeah, man, it's been pretty exciting to see the Stanley Cup playoffs off and rocking. And we got some Buttendz guys playing again this year, so it's fun for us to watch here at Buttendz World.
It's really, it bums me out to this day that I don't get to watch Claude Giroux in orange and black anymore. But
Yeah.
I just can't sit well with it. It's been a few years since he moved out, but I just can't. It just doesn't sit well with me. And plus the jersey that I keep looking at in my bedroom, and it blows my mind.
What do you think about the Flyers gassing Tortorella?
I feel like it was just a matter of time. I mean, we
It's
talked
always a
about it.
matter of time with Tortorella.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. We talked about it on this show too. I mean, I feel like he just pushed it a little too far, just a little further than he should have, and I feel like it's just coming catching up to him. But again, I feel like it was just a matter of time.
Yeah, Tortorella pushes too hard, especially nowadays. Like where these guys, it's more different. It's just different now than it was. Back in the day where obviously NHL players have always been high profile, but now it's like more than ever. They got more money than ever. It's just like
Yeah,
you get a guy, an old school guy in there like Tortorella, who's turning the screws on a young multimillionaire hockey player, and you can see how egos clash pretty good. And when management's paying like your 22-year-old stars millions of dollars, and the team is not winning, a lot of times the coach is the one that's going to take that blame. It's easier for them just to, change up the coach, get a new coach in there, changes up the whole room, rather than going after your young stars. So I don't know. It seems like Tortorella always lands on his feet, though. Like I already saw that he's in the running for the Rangers job, and everyone's like, the Rangers are right there. All they need is a hard nosed coach. And back in the day, dude, like a long time ago, I used to live in New York. This is like back in the beginning when we were just starting to build Buttendz. My boy Prusty was playing for the Rangers, and I was watching them, the Rangers with Tortorella behind the bench. And Prusty always told me he loved Tortorella. I know a lot of guys love him. There's things about him I like as a fan. Like I love his interviews. I love like some of his stuff. I don't know. It's just funny how it depends on like what any coach or any room. It's always different, and like it's all luck of the draw. You could just be you get drafted by the Flyers. Next thing you know, you're playing for Tortorella, and he's sitting you at the end of the bench because you tried to Michigan. You know what I mean? And you're like, what's going on here? Some teams they encourage that, and then Tortorella's the guy who's like, no, we're not doing that here.
That was so well put. It was so well put. I don't think you could have put it any better than that. But it was so well put. I mean, I still remember like when I was starting to play hockey seriously in India for the Indian team. It was almost like a tradition, right? Whenever Team India starts to practice together, we watch the Miracle movie, right? And
Yeah.
all we take away from there is all our coaches teach us is skate harder, skate harder. You don't have to be the best hockey player on the ice. You just have to be the hardest skating player on the ice. And that's what our coaches want us to take away from it. And I feel like Torts is just a good representation of that. But like you said, the 22-year-old guy who's getting paid millions to be there is not gonna put up with it, right?
No, that's
I feel
crazy,
like that's
man.
where it comes
What's
from.
funny too? Speaking of the coaches, it's always funny. Like I think back to my career and where it's really important. The coach that you have is a really important decision. Sometimes it's your decision, sometimes it's not your decision as a player. But it can be the difference between excelling or not doing well, and it can be the difference between getting called up later on in your career. Because a lot of times, a lot of coaches they all have ambition as well, and coaches want to get to the next level. And a lot of times, if a coach likes you and he makes it to the next level, he's going to look for the guys that he knows and likes. And if you're that guy, you know what I mean? You might not be on anybody else's radar, but that coach remembered how you played or how you carried yourself in the locker room and be like, I want that guy. I've seen it in my career a lot where coaches end up from the East Coast League, then they make it to the American League, and then they make it to the National Hockey League, and they bring those same guys along with them, guys that they won with at the lower level. Next thing you know, they're in the National Hockey League playing for them. And it's like, oh man, like I made a couple decisions early in my career where, you know, maybe I didn't choose the right team. And I didn't know. It was like something, who knows? But maybe it would have worked out differently had I played for a different coach, with a different style, if they like my personality more. And that's an interesting factor, man. And then another thing I was thinking about too, bro, I just read this book recently, Open Net by George Plimpton, which was written back in like the 70s. This writer was basically, this guy's sick. He was like a really good writer. And he did this whole thing, a series basically, where he was going to do professional sports and all these different categories, whether it was he played pro football. I think he might have played pro golf. He like did all of these different pro sports, and he ended up playing for the Boston Bruins in preseason. And at the time, Don Cherry was the coach. And if you're not familiar, Don Cherry is like an OG legend from Hockey Night in Canada. When I grew up, man, we used to have sleepovers. I used to sleep over at my buddy Brooks Orpik's house, who he won the Stanley Cup a couple times. He was my good buddy, and we used to watch Rock'em Sock'em hockey videos, and there were Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em hockey videos where like it would just be like a whole video of highlights and different things, and Don Cherry putting on a show. And it was funny because I'm reading this book, and like Don Cherry would do highlights of plays, and he'd have music, and he would show like sweet glove saves or huge hits. And in the book, it talked about like they did video sessions with the coaches. And Don Cherry, a lot of times when I played growing up, when we do video sessions, a lot of time these coaches would like, you know, they'd find things that were wrong. It would always be about like we'd watch film and it'd be like, oh, you screwed up this play. Here's what you should have done, or here's a bad play you made. Here's how you should have done better. And that was like kind of like the vibe. Where Don Cherry, he would only show video of highlights from his players. And this is back in the 70s. And not only that, bro, he would basically cut video and add audio and add music to the clips back in the 70s to show his Boston Bruins players. And he would only show them highlights of them doing good things on the ice. And I love that mentality of like, let's reinforce the good things and let's bring out good feelings in our players. And like, it just shows you the different styles of like coaches. And I thought it was cool like to read about this from a book that came out in the 70s about, a legend like Don Cherry, just the way that he conducted his business in the locker room and like the way that he ran his team was just interesting. And it just got me thinking of, the different ways of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that a lot today too. We hear a lot about or coaches teaching coaches. They teach a lot of, hey, teach your players positivity and bring out the positives in your players, and because not everybody takes criticism well, you know what I mean, and that kind
Yeah.
of, I've seen a lot of players being pushed out of the sport just or losing interest in the sport just because they were shown that they were doing something wrong. I'm sure there's a study to it also that when people are shown how they've done one thing better or how they could do one thing better, they just feel a lot more interested to be a part of that sport or to be a part of that coach's team for that matter, right? Um, we've seen a lot of that too.
Yeah, I completely agree, dude. And I think it's a lot deeper than you think. And I think most players, I would say most guys, especially, usually the top guys, let's say like the top two or three forwards and like the number one D or number two D. And then, even your goalie, you got to be real careful with your goalie. You know what I mean? You don't want to get your goalie in a bad mental space. But I think all players, and I'll just speak for hockey because I'm sure it's other sports as well. But, and myself included, I was sensitive. And you feel it, like you want to play well, and you know what I mean, like you want to have your talents be appreciated by your teammates and like by the coaches, obviously, who control your livelihood and your job. And I reacted much better to positivity as a player. So it's interesting, like now it's more and more obviously, like let's make sure we stay positive. But yeah, you're right on the edge. I think a lot of guys play that way, like right on the edge of whether it's, the highs are super high and when it's low, it's super low. And, if you're in a good mental state, you're going to be making a lot better plays. You're going to enjoy coming to the rink, and you're just going to be an overall better player in person, I think, because of it. I think it's really important. I think, if I was ever the boss of a team, I like to think that I would be one of those coaches who enforce positivity, just because I think it's just overall with the whole team, it's going to be, a net benefit to have players feeling good about themselves.
Yeah, but a lot of times I've also seen it go sideways, because some players they just I mean it's better for players to stay humble all the time, right? And when players are appreciated time and time again, sometimes they start to feel like they're the ruler of the world, right? And that I feel like that can be a huge drawback to your team also. And I've been on the other side of this as well. I've been a player who's been super cocky, super arrogant, just because I was appreciated a couple times, and then I got knocked so far down under the earth that I just had to become humble. And as soon as I was humble, it taught me a lot of things because I was working harder, and then eventually I just got better as a hockey player. But I remembered to be humble afterwards. So I feel like that one time, it's important for everybody to just get knocked down at least once in their lifetime to just become
Yeah, no,
humble.
I agree with you completely. And again, if you're doing things wrong, like if you're not if you're not acting the right way or you're not doing the right thing, having super positivity might not break you out of that, or it's like, oh no, I'm fine, everything's good. And that might just keep you at the mediocre level. But I do think there is like a skill and an art form in delivering here's where we need improvement and here's why we need improvement. And you better improve or you're going to be, we're going to get somebody else to do it for us. I think there's a way to do it where you can still encourage positivity and create good feelings around it. It doesn't have to be, nasty, because it's just, that's a fine line when you're giving criticism. That's like an art, and I think I see it when I'm working with young players. Obviously young players are out there on the ice. Like we do Buttendz camp, right? And we've got kids, that are all different levels. And of course they come to camp because they want to improve things that they're not good at. But you got to be careful with how you are telling some, especially young athletes, like, here's what you're not good at. You're not good at this. You're not good at that. You're not good at anything. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to be careful, but like, you also want to let them know, like, this needs improvement. And I think if you deliver it in the right way, the kids will know that you're out there trying to help them and they'll respond to it. And the same with older players too. So it's like it's about having that good delivery, and I think that's what separates like the good coaches, from the bad coaches. And I think it's important too, also as a leader, to recognize who needs a kick in the pants and who needs a pat on the back. And that's you see that like sometimes. The best players on the team, like I liked playing for coaches who would ride the best players hard, and like they expected the most out of these guys, and I think the team would see it too. Or I've also played on the flip side where the coach only like was so obsessed with like the top goal scorer that the top goal scorer could do no wrong and didn't need to back check and didn't need to do any of the other things everybody else did. No, you don't need to finish your checks because you score goals. Like, everybody else has to, or you're going to get called out. Like teams see that, and teams recognize that. So those are really just important fine details that like separate the really good coaches or the really good players from each other. So yeah, it's an interesting topic though.
I mean, that's great. Teamwork is a huge thing, right? And I feel like the day we just assume that team is just a part of, or team just consists of all the players, I feel like that's where most of us go wrong. I feel like team coaches are an active part of the team too. How they react, how they boost the morale of the team, how they carry the mentality, how they run the players. I feel like all of that matters a lot too. But speaking of good coaches and bad coaches, which is one coach amongst all of the other coaches that you've played with who stands out to you, who's always stuck out to you in terms of, oh, hey, how well he handled everything. You know what I mean? How well he ran the players and all that kind of stuff.
To be honest, the first name that comes to mind was a coach that I grew up here playing for in Buffalo, New York, who came into my life and came into my career at a really crucial time. His name's Mike Suda. Coach Suda, he took over. Like, I was in a really tough spot when I was like 15, 16 years old. I got cut from the top teams, but I was finally starting to blossom where I was getting bigger and getting better. And that was right about the time when I started getting cut from all the teams I tried out for, like select 15s for New York, the top AAA team in Buffalo, getting cut. And it was at a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe like I'm just not cut out for this game anymore. And I played for Suda and here in Buffalo, New York. And and my boy Nick Lynch was also on the team. We were all like, and we had a really tight group. And Suda was like a young guy, and he believed in me in a way that like inspired me to really think that like, okay, I'm actually a player and I can actually do something with my career and I can actually go somewhere in hockey. And it literally was because of the attitude that this coach had for me, that Coach Suda brought to the game and brought into my life. And he was tough, like, but he played the game. He played over in Europe, and he played pro hockey, and like he had just like a really great attitude that I just like wanted to play for this guy, And like when you're a player and you really want to play for a coach, it brings out the best in you, and it brings obviously out the best in everybody. And he was definitely that guy for me. And so, as a teenager, I played for him for 2 years, maybe 3 years, and he really just catapulted me into this. And really what it was it wasn't X's and O's. It was a few things where he talked to me about like, you need to move your feet. I didn't move my feet enough when I was young. You need to move your feet. You need to move your feet. He drove that into me.
Yeah.
And but it was the off ice stuff, it was the conversations on the way to the games. It was the conversations after the games. And like, but the belief that he instilled in me at that age made me think to myself, okay, like I got game. This coach believes in me. I can take my game to the next level. And then eventually ended up playing college hockey, playing Division I hockey, playing pro in the American League. And then Suda was coming to the games and being like, bro, you're right there. Like, this is what I told you. I told you you could do this, And so having a coach like that when you're young, and again, this came from getting cut. I thought the world was coming to an end, because like, I didn't make the best team.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wanted on that team, and then that was actually what really helped me was getting cut there, going to a different team where I found a coach that believed in me, and it really changed everything and made me believe that I could do something with my life, my hockey career. So he's definitely my favorite coach of all time.
Nice. I mean,
What
I would
about
say,
you? What about you, man? Like growing up in India, playing the game over there, I imagine that, because hockey's such a small community, they obviously have a smaller pool of coaching talent, and the community is much smaller. Do you have somebody that sticks out in mind for you that would say inspired you as a coach?
100%. There's only one person. There's actually two people, but one person more than anybody else. His name is Mushtaq Giri, and he's still to this day considered as the best player on the ice in India. At least similar experience. He's gone to the US, stayed there for a couple of years, trained there, played a lot of hockey there, and then he came back to India and started to play for Team India and stuff like that. But yeah, so when I was playing for Team India for the first time, he was the head coach of the team, and that happened coincidentally because that time visas had stopped and the foreign coach that we generally had was having issues with coming to India and all that kind of stuff. And that way, this coach was appointed. And again, everything that happens to you is an opportunity, right? So this guy gets appointed as the head coach of the team. And he just absolutely ridiculously obliterates everybody on the ice. From the youngest guy to the oldest guy, from the best guy to the worst guy on the ice, everybody. He just insults everybody. And there's just a select few of us. Mustu was one of them. I was one of them. Pranav from Shimla was one of them. There's another guy named Achuk was one of them. All of these teammates, all of these guys, just something in us clicked, and we took all of that negativity and turned and like fueled our hard work through all of that negativity, and that's how we just grew as the better hockey players that we are today. And
Wow.
And he continuously did that for 2 months of our entire training camp. Every day, morning and evening, we'd go on the ice twice a day. And every single day, every single session, he would just absolutely insult everybody. I feel like he had a good intention. Of course, he did. Every coach has a good intention, but like the way he tried to nurture us as like young hockey, because we were what 16, 17-year-old hockey players trying to represent our nation, right? And so the way he nurtured that kind of side of us was very humbling to say, right? Because we're 16 years old, 17 years old, about to play for the national team, right? Of course, that's gonna like give you some kind of ego. That's gonna like boost some kind of negative attitude in you. And so this coach Mustaq Giri, he kept us very humble through the process and very like hardworking, grounded through the process. And that's what I feel like. And even to this day, when I have conversations with Mustu, Achok, and Pranav, and all of these guys, we still remember that harsh training or that harsh mental torture that we went through, right? But we still
Yeah.
remember it and we still think, oh God, we wish that we get another coach like him. And we haven't gotten a coach like him anymore. So I feel like that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, and it sounds eerily similar to the Miracle on Ice, like you referenced, like Coach Herb Brooks, where he was like ruthless. It's a legendary story. Obviously, everybody knows it, where he was so ruthless to the team because also they were such underdogs, but they might have had that same bolstered ego, right? Team USA, we're repping Team USA,
Yeah.
we're the best, da da da. And he broke them down to where they hated the coach so much they all united against him together as a unit, came together, and that literally was the fuel that sparked. And I think that goes back kind of to the beginning when we were talking about like that's kind of the Tortorella model, I think, in a way, where he's so flamboyant and so emotional that the boys sort of unite. That's like the idea behind it. You know what I mean? That everybody can
Yeah.
kind of come together with a common enemy, if you will, and unite the boys. And eventually, at the end of the day, it's all about winning. As a team, that's the goal of the team, is to win. So if the coach can pull that off, and like you said, you mentioned it, like he was somebody who brought the best out of you guys. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it has impacted me so much that even today when I play, like even today, if I strap my pads on, if I went to play hockey today, I would still look for him in the stands, and then kind of look for that look on his face. Oh, Vishal, I know I've trained you well. You're doing a good job out there. Like that's the kind of feeling that I would crave for. Even today when I'm on the ice, that's the kind of impact he's caused on me especially, and I'm sure on a lot of other guys as well. A lot of people hate him because of how strict he is, but I feel like he's played a huge positive role in my life personally, and that sticks out to me. So that definitely for sure.
That's pretty cool, man. Great story.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, man. But speaking of like players not being able to take the Tortorella attitude well, or the way of teaching well, what do you think is different from players back in the day to players now, other than the $1 million contracts that young guys are getting? Of course, it's an ego issue, but like, what else do you think? Well, maybe the question I want to ask is for the young guys who are going through this but who don't realize that they're actually the egoistic ones that can't handle this. You know what I mean? How do they reflect upon themselves? What is the way to go? You know what I mean?
Complain to your agent. Ask for a trade. I mean, I think it's all just. I think a lot of it comes from development at a young age, man. I mean, I think more and more you see guys getting serious about training. I know guys that are 15, 16, 17 years old that are preparing their lives to become professional athletes, and I think that's something that even if you're not, let's say, guaranteed to make it as a professional athlete, I think training that way as a young person, if you're a hockey player, let's say, and you prepare your life to be, let's say, oh, I'm going to prepare to, play at the highest level, and do mental training, and have good communication, learn how to have like the conversations with your coach from a young age. Those are difficult things to do, and that'll pay dividends for when you get older, being able to speak to your coaching and being able to communicate, and like also learning how to be a good person, how to be a good teammate, how to be a good player in the room, on the ice and off the ice, by learning those things at a young age, by following the right people, and like following the players who've done it before you. And there's a lot of people like that have written books. Like I was just talking to my boy Sebastian, who we had on the show a couple of months ago, about the book that his family recommended that I read, Hosa. Marion Hossa, who is a Hall of Fame player, and if you read his book, you know, you get a sense of what it took for him to be a Hall of Fame guy. And there's a lot of things you can take away from the way that he carried himself in his career, in his life, in the locker room, in his training. And I was even telling Sebastian the other day, I'm like, bro, he writes about it in the book. He does 500 squats the night before a playoff game. Like, nobody's doing that. Everybody I know is like, oh, I got a game tomorrow. Like, I'm not going to work out today because I need to rest. So I'm ready for the game. And it's like, here's a guy who played in the Hall of Fame. He's playing in the Stanley Cup night before a playoff, and he's doing 500 squats. So if he's doing that, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing that. So like, that's just one example of like a little nugget of something that you can learn. And like, it's the same goes for, your attitude and the way you handle yourself and the way that you're, whether or not you're used to dealing with negativity or coaches that might be, you're like, as a hockey player, you're going to be playing for all different kinds of people, all different personalities. Like, I played for coaches that were super nice. I played for coaches that were complete assholes, to be honest with you. And, every single season or every single thing was a learning opportunity. And it really paid off for later when I was an older kid, an older player playing in pro hockey. I had more experience playing for some of these different personalities, but I could have been even more prepared, to be honest with you, and I could have been better in ways. So I just think it's something that you got to start learning at a young age and practicing, and again, reading the books from people who have come before you that talk about these things, like I mentioned Hosa, or like, for example. And yeah, and so I think by doing that, you'll prep yourself for when you're an older player, and if things are, if you're going to run into adversity, and then it's like how you handle the adversity is really all that matters, and where it will lead you to your future self.
I mean, we've seen great examples of that. Look at Sebastian Brath and look at Bitesy. Two of
Yeah, unbelievable. Dude, Bitesy,
absolute great.
unbelievable. I'm so proud of Bitesy, dude, the way he handled his junior year this year, where he had adversity and he made moves. He went in and talked to the coach, and the coach respected him for it, and he moved on to a better spot, and now he's in a really good spot, and otherwise he could have sat there complaining, crying, not doing anything. But he took the bull by the horns and made something happen, and now he's in a way better spot. He went through an uncomfortable situation and came out the other side much better. So that's a lesson right there.
100%. That's so inspiring to see, right? They're pretty young too, and so I'm sure they've got a long way ahead of them too. So I'm excited to follow along their journeys as well. It's pretty cool to.
Yeah, I talked to Sebastian. He's coming back over to do camp. He's coming over to North America to do a camp here in a couple weeks. I'm hoping to sync up with him then, and I also I'm trying to sync with Bitesy to see what he's doing this summer too, so he can follow those guys.
Sweet, that's awesome. I saw Sebastian Brath is also playing for Team Slovakia.
Yeah, I think he's trying out for the national team, as far as I know, and we'll have to have him back on the show and check in with him pretty soon. Let's get him back. He's a great guest. Let's get him back on here.
Oh yeah, we should do it next week.
Yeah, I'm down. We got to get some invites and find out for guests. If anybody has any guests they want us to have on the show, they got to let us know too in the comments. Sweet, man. What a session tonight, Rob. Yeah, great session, Vishal, as always, my man. It was great. Thanks for sharing the intricate workings. I love hearing about your business and what you're up to. And, and it's an inspiration to see how hard you're working and what you're doing. And then we're able to do our podcast together. It's great.
It's an absolute honor to come on here every Tuesday and talk to you about all different things in life, whether it's business, hockey, other things than life. It's been great, Rob. I can't wait to do this again next Tuesday. Thank you, Vishal.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday on another sesh. Later, guys.